Okay, we're ready for part 2 of SAT test number 6. We're on section 3. So in this video we'll cover problems number 11 through 20. So starting with number 11, it says the vertex of the parabola in the xy plane above is 0, c. So right here's the vertex and it's 0, c. Which of the following is true about the parabola with the equation y is equal to negative a x minus b squared plus c? Okay, well, the negative a, if this one is a and this one opens up, that means that negative a means it's going to open downward. So we're looking for something that opens downward. So we can rule out answer A and answer C. Now, this x minus b squared plus c, so if you have it in this form, this is already in vertex form, and if you remember, vertex form is x minus h squared plus k, so the vertex is hk. Well, in this case, the vertex would be b, comma, c. So the vertex is b, comma, c, so that would be answer B. And also x minus b, if you have x minus b squared, that's a horizontal translation, b units to the right. So if it's here, then it's going to move b units to the right. So therefore, the answer for number 11 is B, where the vertex is b, comma, c, and the graph opens downward. Okay, problem number 12 says, which of the following is equivalent to 4x squared plus 6 divided by 4x plus 2? Well, looking at the answers, x plus 4, I might think it's one of these two just by looking at the answers. So if I was in a hurry, I would pick either C or D, but we really need to work this one out. So if we have 4x squared plus 6x, and if you're to divide this by 4x plus 2, then we're going to do long division here. And we take 4x divided into 4x squared. That goes exactly x times. X times 4x would be 4x squared. And x times 2 is plus 2x. And then what we do is subtract this. So your 4x squared and minus 4x squared cancels out. And then you have 6x minus 2x would be 4x. Okay? And then we say 4x goes into 4x, that goes one time. So that's exactly 1. So we're going to have plus 1. And if you're looking at the answers, you already see an x plus 1 here. So 1, at that point, you would probably just pick answer D. But let's go ahead and finish this problem. 1 times 4x plus 2 is 4x plus 2. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract here, and I'm going to have a minus 2 as a remainder. And so the remainder is always over your divisor. So you're going to have minus 2 over your divisor, which is 4x plus 2. And it looks like the answer was D. And so I'm going to go ahead and go with D. Now at this point, I know some of my students are thinking, wow, is there an easier way? Can we do this shorter, easier? Yes, I believe there is an easier way. And one way is to just, instead of doing all of this long division, that's actually too long. Okay? So let's pick a number. Let's pick a number like, let's say x equals to 0. So if I run 0 in here, I'm going to have 0 squared plus 6 times 0. I'm going to have 0 over 2, which is just 0. Well, if x is 0, this is 0, but we already ruled that out. There's no way the answer could be x. If x is 0, the answer here is 4. And if x is 0 here, you're going to have 0 minus 2 over 2. So that would be a minus 1. And if x is 0 here, you would have 0 plus 1 minus 2 over 0 plus 2. So 2 over 2 is 1, so you're going to have 1 minus 1, which is 0. So if x is 0, we're supposed to get 0, so that's probably the easiest way of doing this. Now, if you like plugging in numbers and if you like working this a shorter, easier way, go ahead and hit the like button. Give me a thumbs up on this video right now. Okay, problem number 13. You have a quadratic equation, 2x squared minus 4x equals to some number t. T is a constant. And in this problem, if the equation has no real solutions, which of the following could be a value of t? So I'm going to rewrite this equation in standard form. So I'm going to have 2x squared minus 4x. And if I subtract t on both sides, minus t here and minus t on this side, so I can have it in standard form, I have minus t is equal to 0. And just remember that this is now in the ax squared plus bx plus c form. So I have a is 2, b is negative 4, and c is negative t. And so in this problem, if we want no real solutions, that means the discriminant tells you d, the discriminant, is b squared minus 4ac. And if there are no real solutions, the discriminant has to be negative, less than 0. And of course that comes from the quadratic formula when you have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, all that over 2a. And so if this part, b squared minus 4ac, is negative, you're going to have a negative under the square root, and that gives you no real solutions. And so that's where we're at right now. So we need to find b squared minus 4ac has to be less than 0. So b is a negative 4. So b squared would be 16. Minus 4 times a is 2. And times c is a negative t. C is a negative t. So negative t. And that has to be less than 0. Okay. So we have 16 minus 4 times 2 times minus. Minus is positive, so I actually have 16 plus 8t has to be less than 0. And if I subtract 16 on both sides, I'm going to get that 8t is now less than a negative 16. And if you divide by 8 on both sides, t is less than a negative 2. So we need to look at our answer choices, and we need to find an answer that is less than a negative 2. Well, if you look at the answer choices, negative 3 is the only one here that is less than negative 2, and that was the answer, answer A. Now, at this point, it is possible that a student might be thinking, is there an easier way that we could do this without the discriminant? Well, maybe there is. So if we have, we can look at the graph, if we have y is equal to 2x squared minus 4x minus t, okay, and so what we need to do is we need to graph that. And it looks like here a is positive, so that means it opens up. And which of the following could be a value of t? So what we're going to do is we're going to graph this. It opens up. Now, these here, t is a constant. So if we have y equals to negative 3, it's going to look something like down here. That's y equals to negative 3. If we have y is equal to a negative 1, it's going to be right here, negative 1. If we have y is equal to 1, it's going to be right here, y is equal to 1. And if we have y is equal to 3, then it's going to be up here. Y equals 3. and this is y equals to 1, and this green one was y equals to -1, and the last one is y equals to -3. Now if it opens up, we know the parabola opens up, and one of these would produce no real solutions. That means it would have to have 3 of the 4. That means it probably is going to look like this. So right there you hit those 3, but it will not hit this last one because it opens up. So y equals -3. So that would be the answer. Maybe that's easier for you, or you just want to do it algebraically. Just take b squared minus 4ac less than 0 and just solve, and the answer was A. Okay, number 14, a laundry service is buying detergent and fabric softener from its supplier. And so it looks like we have a system of inequalities here, and the supplier will deliver no more than 300 pounds. So we're looking for less than or equal to 300 pounds, and they all have that. And each detergent weighs 7.35 pounds, and each fabric softener is 6.2. So 7.35 times D is going to be the number of containers of detergent. So we need 7.35 D, and so the only two that have that is A or B, and 6.2 S because the softener is 6.2 pounds, and S stands for the softener. S represents the number of containers of fabric softener. So then we get down to, is it A or B? Well, the only difference here is D is greater than or equal to 2S, or 2D is greater than or equal to 2S. Well, let's read the rest of the problem. It says the service wants to buy at least twice as many containers of detergents as fabric softeners. So there's going to be twice as many detergent as softeners. So the question is it D greater than or equal to 2S? Well, if S is 1, you're going to have 2 for D, and then 2 would be at least twice as many as the softener. So D is going to be greater than or equal to 2S. And sometimes this particular inequality is a little bit difficult for students because it says that D is twice as many, so they pick 2D greater than S, and that's incorrect. It might be useful to plug in some numbers. If S is 1 and you find out that D is 2, and 2 is twice as many as 1, so then that tells you that the answer here should have been answer A for number 14. Okay, moving right along to number 15, we have a binomial squared. And it says, which of the following is equivalent to A plus B over 2 quantity squared? You should know already that A plus B, I'm going to change that to red, A plus B squared is A squared plus twice the product of the two plus B squared. And so if you know that, when you square a binomial, you're going to have 3 terms. So get that out of here. Get that out of here. We know it's either C or D. And I'm just going to show you a shortcut here, and then we'll do it the traditional way if you want. But the shortcut is going to be, if I square the A, it gives me this part right here, A squared. And if I square the B, it gives me this part right here, B squared. So what I'm going to do in this problem is I'm going to square the A, there's an A squared, plus a middle term, and I'm going to square the B over 2, so I'm going to have B squared over 2 squared is 4. So I need to have an answer that has A squared, and it ends in a B squared over 4. So this ends in a B squared over 4, not B squared over 2. There's no way that could be correct. And so the correct answer is C. And I know some of you are thinking, but wait a minute. What if you just want to multiply it out? Well, you just do FOIL. A plus B over 2 times itself, A plus B over 2. Let's see what happens. You would multiply A times A. That gives you your A squared. And then multiply the outer. A times B over 2 would be AB over 2. or 1 half AB. Multiply the inner, and it gives you the same thing, AB over 2. And then multiply the last one with the last one. B times B would be B squared, and the denominator 2 times 2 would be 4. Now, it turns out that this part right here, if you have 1 half AB plus 1 half AB, that gives you 1 AB. And you already had an A squared, and you have B squared over 4. And so this is a way to do this the long way. Now, if you prefer to do it the long way, you just need to work it real quick because this is a time test. So the answer there was answer D for problem number 15. Okay, on problem number 16 says if A raised to the B over 4 power equals 16 for positive integers A and B, what is one possible value of B? So we're looking for possible values of B. So when it says possible values, and this is in the gridded section, there's more than one answer, and you only need one answer. So I can think of 4 squared as being 16, and there's other combinations. 2 to the 4th is also 16. And maybe 4 squared is the more common one. There's many others, but we're just going to need to do one, so we'll do the easiest one. So in this case, 4 squared is 16. What we have is we have A raised to the B over 4 power is equal to 16. So a possible value of A is 4. So if A is 4, one possible value, then what is B? Well, we know that 4 squared is 16. That means that this B over 4 has to be equal to 2. So if you say B over 4 is equal to 2, multiply both sides by 4 to cancel this out. That means that B has to be 2 times 4, which is 8. See, if you write B equals to 8, that would be correct. Just write 8 for this one. And there's many other answers. All you need is one correct answer. Okay, problem number 17. It says for the equation 2/3 t equals 5 halves, what is the value of t? So we're looking for t for this solution if the equation above. So if we want to solve for t, so we'll multiply by the reciprocal of 2/3 to get rid of that. So we multiply by 3 over 2 on the left side, multiply by 3 over 2 on the right hand side, and this 3 cancels with that, and this 2 cancels with that. So that means that t is equal to 5 times 3 is 15, and 2 times 2 is 4. So that's an improper fraction. You could write the answer for t as 15 over 4, and that would be okay. Now, that's also 3 3/4, so you could write it as 3.75, and that would also be okay. And sometimes a student will say, well, 3 3/4, I could write it as 3 3 over 4. This is not okay. You cannot write mixed numbers. So that's going to be wrong every time. You cannot write 3 3/4. Mixed numbers are wrong. And I see that quite often on these SAT tests, so it makes me wonder if the College Board is actually doing this intentionally to see if you know the rules of the game. So the rules are you can write improper fraction like 15 over 4, that's correct, or 3.75, and that's correct. You can write it as a decimal. Either one of those two would be correct, but not 3 3/4. Okay, problem number 18. We have a right triangle and we have another little right triangle inside. In the figure above, it says BD, this right here, is parallel to AE. So these two are parallel. So that means if angle A is a right angle, this would also be a little right angle there. Okay? And that makes those two triangles similar. What is the length of CE? So CE would be the large hypotenuse. So I'm going to put here from here to here, CE. That's what we're looking for. So in this problem, let's call this X because we're looking for the length of CE. And in this little triangle, we know that CD is a hypotenuse for this little triangle. And you should know this is a 6, 8, 10 right triangle because we know that 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to CD squared, which is the hypotenuse. And this would be 36 plus 64, and that's equal to 100. So CD squared is 100. So that means that CD is 10. And you should know already your Pythagorean triples, 3, 4, 5. And if you double that, it's 6, 8, 10, and so on. And I have a video on deriving Pythagorean triples that is very useful for SAT problems. I'm going to attach a link at the bottom to a video where I derived a formula for all these different Pythagorean triples, so you don't have to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared all the time. So let's go back to the problem and see what we have. We have this altitude 18 is to this altitude 6. So we can have 18 is to 6. Similar triangles are proportional. And we have this large triangle hypotenuse is x, and that would be proportional to the small hypotenuse of 10. So if we do a cross product here, we're going to have 6 times x is equal to 18 times 10, which is 180. And if we divide by 6, then x is equal to 30. Now, this is probably the long way of doing it. It's probably the way you're taught in geometry class to set up a proportion for similar triangles. There is probably an easier way of doing this. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the ratio of this 18 to 6. 18 to 6 is 3 to 1, so that means that this x has to be 3 times this 10. So if 18 is 3 times 6, then this hypotenuse that we're looking for, which I call x, is going to be 3 times this little hypotenuse here. 3 times 10, so that would be 30. And so the answer here is 30. And that would be the easiest way of doing that one. Okay, moving right along to problem number 19. How many liters of a 25% saline solution must be added to 3 liters of a 10% solution to obtain a 15% solution? So we have a mixture problem here. We're mixing 2 solutions to come up with the final solution. So for this problem, I like to just show a little beaker here for the first one and add it to the second one. So we're mixing those 2 solutions, and that'll give us our final solution. Now we start off with 25%. We have 25% of this solution, and we want to know how many of that. So this would be x liters, x amount at 25%, and we're going to add 3 liters of a 10% solution. And the end result is going to be, when we mix a 10% and a 25%, we're going to come up with something that winds up being a 15% saline solution. And so what's our volume here? Well, if we start off with x and we added 3, we now have x plus 3 liters. And so we can solve for x because we're looking for how many of these 25% right here. So 25% of x, so we could just disregard the percents, just have 25 times x plus 10% of 3, so 10 times 3 is equal to 15% of x plus 3. And again, I'm disregarding the percents because they all cancel if I multiply everything by 100 instead of dealing with decimals. So the amount of saline is 25, 10, and 15. So here's 25, 10, and 15. So I now have 25x plus 30 is equal to 15 times x and then 15 times 3. Don't forget that. We're distributive property. 15 times 3 is 45. So if I subtract the x's on both sides, 15x here and 15x there, I am left with 10x here plus 30. and these cancel out. I have 45 on the right hand side. So if I subtract 30 on both sides, you're left with 10x is equal to 15. And if you divide by 10, you're going to get 1.5 or 3/2. And so that's the amount of liters that you need to have. So x is 1.5 or 3/2. Okay, problem number 20. Our last one. Points A and B lie on a circle with radius of 1 and arc AB. So we have a circle and the radius is 1. So this is 1, that's 1, and this is some point A and B. So it says the length of arc AB is pi over 3. So that means that from here to here, this part right here is actually pi over 3. Okay, so that's part of the circumference, right? So it says what fraction of the circumference of the circle is the length arc AB? Well, the circumference is 2 pi r, and r in this case is 1. So we have 2 pi, and the arc measures pi over 3. So we have pi over 3 divided by 2 pi. Well, pi's cancel out. So you have 1/3 divided by 2, which is really 1/3 times 1/2, which would be 1/6. So that means that this part right here from A to B is 1/6 of the total circumference. And you could write the answer as 1/6, or if you wanted to, you could say that's 0.166, or you could round up to 0.167. The College Board will mark all of those three answers as correct. I would just go with 1/6. It's just easier instead of dealing with repeating decimals. I would mark it with 1/6. Now, there is a problem with decimals. If a student marked 0.17 and round off to the 2 decimal places, this would be counted wrong. That's incorrect. So just go with the 1/6, and that was the final answer. This is our final problem. If you enjoyed these videos, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the bell for notifications. We'll have more coming. Thank you for watching.